All right, and finally on the show, we have a Delving Deeper, which is a design issue that I think we've seen a lot, especially since we were just playing Cyberpunk, but it's definitely been in some other games as well, which is about the number of places where you have to loot items from.
Yes.
The
The loot caves.
The loot caves, yeah. I go into a house and I need to go through every drawer, every side table, every refrigerator, everything. Now, the reason why I originally brought this up, yes.
The difference to this in video games and tabletop games is that generally speaking in tabletop games and RPGs, there doesn't usually happen to be a lot of items in every single object that you look in.
That's true. I actually think that this is one of those places where tabletop does this better, because you just say, I'd like to search the room. You'd make a perception check or something, and then the DM would tell you, hey, here's what you found.
Yeah.
It's actually one of those places where tabletop can be a lot faster.
The difference is that tabletop doesn't tend to have a lot of mundane. I mean, some people can put them in there, but on the general, you don't take the time to mention the mundane items you find in places. It's like the room's empty. It's like, no, the room's not empty. There's just nothing interesting in it.
Right. I always wonder if that's one of the reasons why so many people eschew the idea of those spell elements like pieces of carrot and string and wool, because you probably come across that without even realizing it in the world, and you just kind of say, yeah, you found it somewhere, it's fine. But in video games, this does become a bit of an issue. The place where I inspired me to want to talk about this was actually, I was playing Generation Zero, which is a game basically where it's like a survival game, which has this problem a whole lot. But it's in a world that is now flush with robots that want to kill you. It's Terminator in the future, but they don't look like Terminators.
Okay.
But there's a bunch of abandoned houses. And there's a bunch of abandoned cars. And what you'll do is you'll go into one of these houses and hopefully not encounter any evil robots that want to kill you or blow you up. But if you have not found that, there are also a bunch of places to loot. Sometimes the obvious ones aren't actually loot spots, so you have to walk up to everything and see if it's interactive. Yeah.
I think Fallout did that well. Fallout 4 specifically did that well, where you can kind of look at the item and see what's in it.
Oh yeah, that is definitely an improvement. I liked that system more than the previous ones in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, where I have to open up everything. But then there's some things in Gen Zero where, you go, oh, a refrigerator, maybe there's some food items, and it's actually not an interactive spot, so they don't really highlight where you can search. So now I'm just walking up to everything to see if it's... But the harder thing, the thing that I really didn't understand, was the cars. So if you want to search a car, what do you normally assume if it's a searchable thing? You'd walk up to the car and you'd search the car and see if there's anything inside of it. What they decided to do in Generation Zero, though, is make it so that you can open all the doors, the hood, and the trunk, and see if there's anything in either any of those, backpacks or things, that you can then interact with, so that you can then... And it's no, don't make the car 6 separate loot spots I have to open up and check. God...
Yeah, that's excessive.
Yeah, it really was.
Maybe doors in the trunk, but what are you putting in the hood?
Oh, it's metal pieces that you can use for crafting. You can take out some metal and
you know what you can do?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being open the hood and search for metal, you can just turn it into a function where it's all right, scrap.
Yeah.
And you just collect, hold down the button until you just if it's possible, you just collect scrap.
Oh yeah.
You know
what you do? You do the Fortnite thing. Where I just take
Fortnite.
Okay, you just take, when you come across cars in Fortnite, you just take your pick and you just start picking it, and you just get scrap from it. Just keep scrapping it for parts.
Just make it a single animation where it's you hold the button to search for scrap, and then so the animation, you open the hood and you dig around inside and you pull out some wires and scrap metal or something, and then you close the hood.
Right. I just started to realize that early on, like when you just get off the docks in this game, the first thing, before you even encounter any robots or even shoot your pistol, there's like 6 of these cars that are just on the dock outside the thing. And when you start to realize that I have to search all of these, that's like the first 10 minutes of your game.
That's like when you get into Sanctuary in Fallout 4, in the first hour and a half of your game.
All over the town. Yeah.
Is you search the entire small little cul-de-sac and you scrap everything.
You scrap everything. You go into build mode, you take out everything you can't use, you scrap it all. I go down into the cellar, I go and get every single thing I possibly can. You spend the first hour and a half just doing that.
Which, honestly, not the best way to start your game off with a subsystem that takes that much time.
Right.
It really messes with the pacing.
It does. I would have actually liked to see a thing where, like, the first 5 hours or so, they don't really introduce the crafting or the base building mechanics. They wait for a while for you to really get used to the actual system and pace it a little bit better. Get into those deeper systems that are going to take a lot more time later on in the game. But the general problem, and Fallout has definitely had this, is the idea that they kind of encourage you to pick up literally everything. Like, just every single thing imaginable. Fallout 4 probably had this problem more than the previous ones because you could kind of, in 3 in New Vegas, realize that there are some items that are useful for whatever you want to craft, because you craft them with individual items, and some of them you really don't have to pick up at all. I don't need a bent tin can because I can't do anything with it whatsoever, so there's no point. Fallout 4, though, everything can be broken down into base components.
Which then became a carry everything game.
It became a carry literally everything you find in the game. I had so many giddy up buttercup parts, but when you go into the factory and it just weighs you down. And yeah, so now I'm moving at a snail's pace, and I have all of this stuff that I have to go break down eventually.
This is the reason in Fallout 4 I made it so that all of the scrap and junk stuff, I have a mod that just makes it weightless.
That's a good mod to have.
Not because I think it's... I don't consider it cheating, I consider it quality of life improvement.
Yeah.
It's like, do I really want to be spending my game experience trucking back and forth to one area at either a snail's pace or multiple times to carry all this stuff?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah, there's probably at some point going to be a soapbox that we'll have to do where we talk about, guys, weight limits and backpack space. We got to find a better... Yeah, we're probably...
Are you sure that's not what we're doing right now?
We're kind of talking about it right now. If I do any kind of cheat, like I will try to like augment my character, but if there was one that I would say should be like a gimme and people wouldn't like disable achievements, it should be I can make my weight limit way higher on the character, or make
thankfully mods
weightless.
don't typically disable achievements, so
yeah, usually you're in good shape for those.
But yeah, so loot spots though.
Yeah,
the amount of places you can loot from.
Yeah,
too many loots,
and
like.
Yeah.
I enjoy the Borderlands style of loot.
Yep.
Where it's everything. People drop tons of loot. That's fine, because it's equipment you can. I mean, to be fair with Borderlands, I don't enjoy the backpack space being so limited in that.
Yeah.
But there's not excessive items that are useless.
No, you're not picking up really if you're picking something up, it's something that is specifically like guns, equipment, artifacts. It's actual stuff you equip. There really isn't other stuff that you pick. Anytime you have a game that's going to have a crafting system, I think it runs into this problem of just needing to, pick up every single thing imaginable. And we were just talking about Cyberpunk. Even in Cyberpunk, you have that issue where, your individual characters will drop stuff, but then there will be, stuff on tables, there'll be chests in the corner, there'll be, lockers that you have to open up, and they'll all have, like, a rarity coding. So it's easier to locate them.
Yes.
Which is great, but you do have to go around and pick up legitimately everything. What they do that is useful, though, is any of those crafting parts, because they're usually broken down or easily broken down in your inventory, weigh nothing. so they don't really, hinder you from moving. And if you wanted to, you could break down the guns into spare components and stuff like that.
I usually do. It's because, especially at the level I'm at, they don't sell for much.
No, they won't. Later on, you start to realize at higher levels, when you get higher level guns and they do actually sell for money, it's actually better to sell them and then buy crafting components.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can actually buy them en masse for the higher level stuff. But the point is that in any of those crafting systems, it is very easy to bog down the second that I have to pick everything up. And I started thinking about this in like a Generation Zero. Wouldn't it have been better if I could have done like a scan of the house and they could have told me what was in the house? Like if I was able to clear out all the rooms and I can say that the house is now secure, having the option to say, I would like to loot the house. Just the house. And they could tell me with like my perception, or if I have skills that helps out with it, whatever, that this is what you would find if you just did an auto collect on the house. Might not be as much as if you go around and do the individual stuff. Like maybe you would miss stuff because it would be about like your skills involved.
It's not as immersive then.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that aren't going to be immersive anyway, like the fact that like my guns are color-coded for rarity. That's not exactly an immersive experience either. Like, how is the orange gun? Well, in Borderlands, okay, literally my shotgun fires swords. There's a certain point where you have to say that immersion isn't going to be... I don't mind if games want to try to be immersive, but not to the point of absurdity.
Yeah.
I don't, I understand Red Dead Redemption that you would like to make this feel very lived in, but it doesn't mean I need to pick up every single can and look at it individually, or,
Yeah, you don't really need to do that.
No. There's something to be said about realistic versus realism, Yeah. But at any rate, I just want them to find a way to minimize the number of actual places I need to go, and maybe consolidate it up or find a better system where I can actually avoid having to do that, because it's a pacing issue for me at a certain point, especially later on. And if they introduce it early, even worse. Sanctuary, again, takes you forever. Sanctuary Hills is just a forever deal that you can never get out of. What would be... I wish I could come up with a solution, but what would you say is one of the more egregious ones that you've dealt with in games lately?
Lately? I mean, we did touch on the consumables in, Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
I love the fact they have all the consumables because it adds, flavor to the world. Look at all these brands of everything that we've got.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, it's it feels unnecessary to have that many that do that many of the same things.
Oh, sure.
It's I don't need 20 different brands of alcohol that I'm never going to use.
Yeah, that don't actually help you very much.
And don't help, and it just takes up inventory space. So it's
sure.
I enjoy it for the world aspect, wow, they've got a lot of brands of food in here, but I don't like it for the fact of I'm going around picking these all up because I see them, seeing everything and picking it all up because I'm I'm used to games where you hoard food and potions and stuff, like Skyrim.
Yeah.
And then I just end up dumping, we were talking about earlier, is we just end up mass selling our consumables.
Oh, yeah.
Skyrim, what I would do is I would pick everything up, and I had mods to make everything weightless too, for the materials for crafting, alchemy stuff, and then the food I made way less. But then I'll go into my home and I'll just take all the food I've got and deposit it into one container.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll do that with all my crafting stuff just to get it out of my inventory.
Sure. Yeah. Similarly, when I was in Skyrim 2, there are some mods that I found really useful that were more realistic, harvesting mechanics, so that when you're going around and getting the lavender and the mountain, orchids or whatever, all of those things, or you're dealing with like the goats and stuff, more realistic like output instead of like I get the one flower from this thing. Like this is a pretty large patch, how many are you going to get? So that actually meant that I could go and start doing crafting without having to go around the world and forage for 500 of these, individual spots. I could get to it faster. I think that might actually be a really good thought process in game design, is if you just had more output, but maybe less spots themselves, less actual interactable items, but with higher export. Like that would just pace it better. And that's the thing. Because while you're in the process of going around trying to, loot every single scrap pile, you're not really playing the game itself, and it can actually cause players to lose their interest.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, and you don't want to do that. So, any other suggestions on what we might be able to do to alleviate that general problem of having to go around and pick up shingles off the side of buildings?
I really don't know. It depends on the different games and what they're trying to do.
Sure.
But maybe just be like, all right, here's your inventory for equipment, and then here's like Cyberpunk did. Here's all your crafting stuff, or whatever. Or figure out a way, or maybe more shopkeepers that have the option to buy all junk.
Yeah, the auto junk trade. Yeah.
Yeah, that for instance is really handy as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I forgot about
Or
that.
maybe something to only keep the highest grade potions or items for healing, for instance. Or it's like you sort it by the how much useful it is for you at your level. Because like that would be helpful too. It'd be like, all right, I can get rid of everything that's not this because they're all useless to me at this level because they do nothing.
Exactly.
Something like that, maybe.
Something like that. And also, I've noticed in systems like Horizon Zero Dawn that I've been playing recently, the idea that if you are starting to find that the crafting is getting a little bit monotonous, there are skills you can take that will actually increase the crafting, the number of things that you get from each thing. So it makes it quicker to actually get to where you need to get to craft items. And crafting stuff right in the scroll wheel as well, if you're getting bogged down with stuff. Very useful. But something to consider, especially if you're building a game, or if you're looking at the design of a game, is how much time I'm spending just doing that downtime, because I consider loot spots downtime. So.